Hello and welcome to another episode of App Stories, a Mac Stories podcast all about the world of apps. Today's episode is brought to you by Notion. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing really well. We had a great pre-show. We talked about a lot of the little tidbits that I have observed while I've been here in California for WWDC. Today is my last day in California. I'm recording this. And then I will probably maybe start editing it on the way home at the airport. I don't know, but it's been a fun week. It's been a really good time. And if you're interested in hearing about some of those tidbits, you can subscribe to Club Mac Stories Premiere or just App Stories Plus all by itself. Just go to plus.club or appstories.plus to learn more about those things.
Yeah. And yeah, it's been a different week for me, obviously, compared to last year when I was in California with you last year. I was at home this week. Obviously, I missed very much being in California, but also I gotta be honest, I appreciate how much more productive I've been from home.
Yeah.
To the point, John, where I think since I have almost the full day for myself tomorrow. Silvia is busy at work. I think by tomorrow evening, I'll be done with watching all the sessions I need for this year's iOS review. Yeah. And I think I'll have a table of contents for my review. I think I'll and I get the sense that it's not going to be a particularly long one this year.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Since and I saw also on Mastodon, somebody compared the number of sessions and the length of sessions this year compared to last year, and I believe it's 20 hours less in 2024 compared to 2023.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's you can tell that these are not huge upgrades, but still being at home, I was able to take a lot of notes. I'm basically 50% done with the sessions that I want to watch. I turned my absence in California into at least being productive at home. It's one of the biggest differences with between going to the event and staying home.
Yeah, no, that's great, especially since obviously we're both traveling this summer and, that kind of cuts into some of our review preparation time. And I would say that hearing that from you makes me anxious, but it really doesn't, because I know that the Mac is very similar in terms of macOS having some nice updates, but not so many that it feels overwhelming.
I mean, there are 3 features that you need to cover. macOS is like iPadOS in that regard. Although I would say that the 3 features that macOS got are better features than the 3 ones that iPadOS got.
True.
But I think both your macOS review and my iPadOS chapter will be pretty short ones this year, which, hey, it's more time to focus on apps, I guess, in September.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of other things going on in our lives and planned for Mac Stories. So, it's not a bad thing for us to have a little extra time now and then, instead of just grinding it out all summer. So I'm looking forward to a fun summer. I think that'll be kind of nice. And yeah, I'm obviously much further behind the curve in terms of knowing what was announced, like the real nitty-gritty details, than you are, because that is the downside of being here, is that I have not watched any videos. I have not read very many articles or, documentation or anything like that yet. But it does seem quite manageable, and I'll start doing some of that on the way home tonight probably. And I could conceivably be done by the weekend, although I think I'm going to take Saturday off. I just need a day to kind of decompress.
Yeah. And look, honestly, you're not missing much. Once you play around with the home screen customization stuff and the control center customization, all the other upgrades in iOS, I mean, they are very iterative in nature. They're the big stuff is the home screen customization and control center. And even then, I don't think you and I are going to take advantage of icon tinting or custom icon layouts that much, because knowing ourselves, we're gonna fill all of the spots on the home screen anyway. We're not really aesthetic, home screen people. I don't think.
No, we are not. And I actually, I do have the betas on my phone, my iPad, and my Apple Watch now. And I opened up my iPhone and I really like the new control center, but I started thinking about moving my icons around. I thought, well, I can't do this on the first page. So I flipped over to the second page. Well, I can't really do this on the second page. So
Yeah.
I took a few of those icons on the second page and I just moved them over to a third page so I could try it and see what it was like. And I thought, well, I'm not really sure I'm going to do this. One, it feels weird to me after all these years, for one thing. I think I will get over that. On the other hand, I don't think I want a lot of blank spaces on my iPhone, especially
Yeah.
my iPhone. Maybe on the iPad. I don't know.
Yeah, this is the problem with customization sometimes. When you make something that is so ingrained in your muscle memory, when you make it customizable, then you realize, oh, but like you have this tension between the newfound ability to customize it versus the fact that now your brain and your fingers are accustomed to 17 years of interactions. For example, I'm seeing this now with the lock screen, where you can now customize the flashlight launcher and the camera launcher at the bottom of the lock screen. And I customized it. Like, I'm trying to see if I like it doing something else. But I can tell you, it's been like, 5 days? And I still get it wrong because I long press in the bottom right corner where the camera button used to be. And the camera doesn't launch anymore. And I remember, oh, yeah, I customized it. Like, I'm not complaining about customization, but sometimes I think it's easier to make something that didn't exist before customizable than it is to update something that was never customizable and suddenly it is. It's harder to get used to. It's harder to get used to it. Is what I'm saying, I guess.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, I think, especially on the lock screen, I'm not sure I'm going to change the camera button unless I can get the same interaction from something like Halide or Obscura or one of the other.
But, there's going to be an iPhone 16 with a camera button on the side. So maybe that's why Apple is doing the capture button in the next iPhones. Because
yeah, maybe that's right. I mean, I don't use the flashlight a ton myself. So I think that's one where I could see myself changing it.
I use it a lot. I use it a lot, like the flashlight, especially like, for example, the story when my power supply unit quote unquote caught on fire, which it really didn't. Spoiler: you should listen to NPC, Next Portable Console, the show that we do about portable gaming. Me, John, and Brandon, also on Mac Stories. But for example, in those circumstances where like I need to do some cable management in the dark, like that's when I use the flashlight a lot.
I thought you were going to say like when you're walking your dogs or something.
Also, when I'm walking the dogs in the winter, and at night when I'm checking on my plants outside, like to make sure they don't have any bugs that are like bad for the plant, like checking on the leaves.
You should do that during the daytime, Federico.
But I'm busy in the daytime, and when it's hot, you cannot. It's best if you don't water your plants when it's hot outside.
That is true.
So that's why I need to use a flashlight at night.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Notion. If you've got a big project or maybe just a lot of projects, whether they're personal projects, work projects, whatever it is, you really owe it to yourself to give Notion a try. I've been using it quite a bit for years now for big work projects, for Mac Stories stuff. When we relaunched the club now, I guess it's been almost 3 years now, we use Notion to document all of the back-end software, as well as all the features and all the marketing materials and everything. And it allowed me and Federico and Alex all to kind of keep tabs on who was doing what needed to be done, what was finished, and all that sort of thing. It's really quite remarkable. And with Notion AI, which has now been around for quite a while, it really adds a new level to the kind of organization and data that you can pull out of a large Notion library, because you can use it to pull tasks out, or you can use it to organize a list or summarize a long set of meeting notes, whatever it is. You can find what you want. And that's really what a tool like Notion is all about. It's about getting the information down and being able to find it again and share with the people you work with. Notion is a place where any team can write, plan, organize, and rediscover the joy of play. It's a workspace designed not just for making progress, but getting inspired. It's the AI-powered workspace where things just take care of themselves. Meetings have summaries, documents find themselves, and every question has an answer. Notion AI turns knowledge into action, from summarizing meeting notes and automatically generating action items to getting answers to questions in seconds. If you can think it, you can make it. And it's for everyone, whether you're a Fortune 500 company or freelance designer, starting a new startup, or a student juggling classes and clubs. Try Notion for free when you go to notion.com/appstories. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/appstories to get started turning ideas into action. And when you use our link, you're supporting our show. That's notion.com/appstories. Our thanks to Notion for their support of the show.
There was one thing I wanted to mention.
Okay.
Speaking of recapping the week, which is I installed the beta on my iPhone and iPad, and literally, and this is not an hyperbole. Literally, every single one of my things, shortcuts, and automations broke.
Yeah, I know.
None of them are working anymore because iOS and iPadOS 18 have some issues with, I think, the find action. And basically,
wasn't there a problem with find actions not that long ago?
There was a problem
17?
not so long ago. Yes, we spoke about this, and it broke again. Now it says that I'm using an incompatible version of shortcuts, and it says update to a new version of shortcuts. I am literally on the 18 beta. So,
right.
Yeah, so I temporarily switched back to reminders because I need to have a task manager that I can automate with shortcuts. And the fun thing I wanted to mention, sort of patting myself on the back, if you will, the way I design my shortcuts and my automations, and I guess thanks to the nature of shortcuts also, switching from things to reminders was just a matter of swapping a single action with the things one with the reminders one. Since my shortcuts deal with the logic of what the shortcut is doing with my tasks or with due dates, it's all separate from the task manager that I'm actually using, right? And the shortcuts that I have, they generally have at the end the action that actually creates a task in my task manager. And by just swapping that from things to reminders, I was able to keep all my variables, all my due dates. And so in 10 minutes, I converted all of my things automations to reminders one. There are some differences, of course, like some limitations that reminders has compared to things. But by and large, I was up and running again in 15 minutes, which was it says a lot about me, maybe to an extent, and the way that I design my shortcuts, but also more broadly and more seriously, it says a lot about the shortcuts ecosystem, I think.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I have already run into some bugs. I guess one that I would warn people about, and this is just developer beta 1, so I'm not surprised. CarPlay is the kind of thing that breaks a lot in betas, and I noticed right away that I can't do Siri commands with CarPlay right now. I can, if I long hold the power button on my phone, I can do a Siri command and it'll show up on the car. Like if I look for directions or something like that, it works perfectly fine. But if I ask it to play a playlist, for instance, it just starts playing random songs in my music library. And if I ask it to navigate to a person's address in my contacts, it won't do that. It says something to the effect that, they can't find that person or whatever. We can't find that location, as though it's not connected to contacts and is looking for a business call that, with that person's name. Yeah. But I'm sure that'll get cleared up pretty quickly.
For sure. Hey, do you want to talk about, and you want to quickly talk about Applebot and why we disabled AI web crawlers at Mac Stories?
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, I think quickly is a little hard.
I'm laughing because literally I'm screaming inside. But since that wouldn't make for fun content to listen to on a podcast, that's why I'm laughing. But actually, I'm not
Yeah.
laughing. Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, the difficulty is doing this quickly because I know you and I both feel very strongly about this, and I, we both have written about it now already, and we've both obviously gotten some interesting blowback on social media. I'm sure you got some of the same comments I did.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think it comes down to, this is not like one thing that I want to make clear is that I got some pushback from people who said, you're only upset about Applebot and the fact that the large language model that Apple's using is based on scraping the open web because it's Apple and you like Apple and you're disappointed. Where were you when OpenAI was doing this, or whoever else was doing this? And first of all, that must be a person who has not read what I've written or followed any of the podcasts, because I have a fairly spicy and well listened to episode of Ruminate with Rob Knight, where I kind of laid into Arc in particular and what Arc Search has been doing, replacing web pages with summaries of them and displaying those to users instead of taking them to the web page. And I also wrote an article in Club Mac Stories, which we actually published and made available for everyone as kind of a free sample, that was called Strip Mining the Internet, or Strip Mining the Web, which was all about appropriating content from the internet in order to build large language models. And I think it's just wrong. I personally view it as stealing.
Mm-hmm. It is stealing, yes. That is the definition of stealing. The thing is, see, that counter argument, oh, you're only upset now because Apple did it. I think it deserves a multi-layered answer from me. And so I'm gonna peel back this onion of a question.
It is quite an onion, isn't it?
First of all, yes, I am upset that Apple did it. Because of all tech companies, Apple is the one where, is the one that its previous CEO literally stood on stage with a giant graphic behind him saying, we sit at the intersection of technology and the liberal arts. And
right.
It's the kind of company that has said on numerous occasions over the past few decades, I'm not saying months, I'm saying decades, they have said how much they respect the liberal arts and creators and artists. And it's why this company faced all that backlash just last month for the Crush advertisement for the iPad Pro. So yeah, I'm upset that Apple did it because we expect more and better from Apple. Because when you set a higher standard than other companies, people come to expect that standard from you.
Right. And I would encourage people to go back and watch that clip.
Yes, I did last night. It's still very good.
It's very, very good. It was during the iPad event when the iPad was revealed.
No, it was the iPad 2, I think.
Oh, the iPad 2. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yes. The thin one, right?
The thin one.
And to me, the reason that at the time resonated with me, not just because of what was said, but because it felt very heartfelt in my estimation. And in retrospect, I think what Steve Jobs was trying to say there was really he was explaining what he hoped his legacy would be. And to me, that was like a guiding principle for many years for the company. And I do wonder whether that has been lost somewhere along the way. It does really make me wonder about that.
Yeah. So that was my first answer. And the other thing is, I think it's naive for some people to think that somebody else may never change his mind about a topic.
Right.
And all this AI craze over the past year and a half, it started, and I gotta say, I was naive because I was all excited about ChatGPT and what it did, how it worked. And initially, I think we all shared some disbelief and excitement of being like, how is this possible that you can generate text, that you can answer my questions so naturally. How is it possible that you can create images? How is it possible that you can transcribe audio so quickly and so well? But then the more research I started doing on this topic over the past few months, and the more I started informing and educating myself, and the more apparent and clear it became that the way that OpenAI was doing these things was just not sustainable for creators. And the way that many other AI companies were doing it was not ethically responsible in regards to how they were training their models, with what kind of data they were using, and how they were sourcing that data to train the models that eventually would be used to generate quote unquote art or generate text or other types of digital content based off original content that was stolen from other people. And so I think it would be only immature people never change their mind after having done research and informing themselves. And so I think it's a healthy thing to change your mind about a topic once you learn more about it. Because we are people and we have a brain and we can think using that brain, and it would be stupid to never change your mind about something after you read more and learned more about it. And so, yeah, that is sort of my context here. Apple in many ways was, and the way that they just offhandedly almost mentioned, I believe, one time at WWDC, right? At a private Q&A that you went to, moderated by iJustine. How they just offhandedly mentioned, yeah, we also used Applebot to crawl the open web. And also that is the same line that they just buried in a blog post on the machine learning website. I honestly find that kind of offensive. No, I do find it offensive to creators and to web publishers. The idea that as long as it's on the open web, it means that you can crawl my website and ingest my content and use my content, appropriate my content to train a foundational model for an AI that later will use even a tiny percentage of that content without my consent to generate additional text in a commercial feature. I'm not okay with that. I am not okay with that. And I am not okay with the fact that publishers were only told about it after the fact. If Apple...
That to me is the telling thing. It's like, okay, you can now block this now that we've taken everything already.
Yeah. Oh, that's convenient, right? Thank you. Now your model has been trained, and I guess and I guess I can block the crawler from future ingestion of my text. Great. No, the Apple should. When I say that I expected more from Apple, what I mean is that we see these stories literally every single day now. Just last night, I was reading about how Forbes, the website, is upset with Perplexity, the AI company, because they just ingested their content and created like an AI version of a paywalled story that was on the Forbes website. Without telling them, of course, because they never tell the publishers. And
that's really concerning, because I would have thought that it would be very hard to get beyond the paywall.
Right? What I was expecting from Apple was, okay, you want to do generative AI. And this is where it gets tricky. Because the thing is, from my perspective, I am not, and maybe people should hear me say this more clearly, I am not against the technological concept behind LLMs and generative features.
Nor am I.
Right? I think there are some obvious, useful implementations of that technology. What I am against is the questionable and unethical data sourcing for training a model. What I was expecting from Apple was to do this work beforehand and license all the content they could, right? Either by reaching out to publishers or reaching out to artists, making deals, actually paying for the content, and then warning publishers of the open web saying, hey, look, we're gonna do this in X and X weeks or months. this is gonna happen. If you don't want to, you can opt out. Or maybe they could have made it opt-in. I don't know. But the thing is, why is it that publishers on the web should always get the short end of the stick with these companies?
Exactly.
Why is it? Why is it? Why do we just assume that if you publish a website and it comes with an RSS feed, it's okay to take all of my text and do some training on it and spit it out as if nobody cares? It's not right.
Right. And I think it's also important to kind of keep in mind that this is, when we say this is wrong, we're not talking about necessarily in the legal sense, although I don't think this is fair use under copyright law in the US and probably not in other countries as well. But I think it's wrong, it's, as you said, ethically and morally wrong.
I think so. And you know, Apple, again, it upset me because Apple is the kind of company that stood on stage and say, you know, by saying we sit at the technology, at the intersection of technology and the liberal arts. And so that is the thing that gets to me. Like, you know, Perplexity, Anthropic, Claude, OpenAI, like maybe these companies literally don't, maybe all of them, maybe they never cared and never will care about artists and about the open web and about publishers. But when a company that said multiple times, here's the values we stand for, then they just go and crawl your website and take content from your website to train an AI model that is going to have generative features, and they tell you after the fact, that upsets me because I was expecting more and better from you. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I think to kind of close this out, Federico, and maybe a little bit more fun way that's a little maybe lighthearted, I want to kind of address two responses I heard, which were essentially everybody's doing it and the ends justify the means, by hitting you with an analogy where you and I, in a parallel universe, decide, you know what? We're done with this web stuff. We're going to open up a pizzeria in Rome.
All right. Cool.
All right.
Yeah. I love it.
And so, you know, you and I, we're both fans of pizza, and I think that we would run a good pizza restaurant. And so we decided to open one in downtown Rome. And we came up with a great way to do better than all the other pizzerias in Rome. Every morning, you and I would go down to the best market in Rome, where they had all the best, you know, mozzarella and the flour and the basil and the tomatoes, all the best ingredients. And we taught ourselves to become expert shoplifters. And we would take all the cheese and tomatoes and basil and flour. We would take it all. You and I would split up. We'd assign each other what it was we were going to get for that day. And we'd steal it and we'd bring it back to our restaurant. And it was great because not only were we great pizza makers in this universe, but we were able to charge less than anybody else because we didn't have to pay for the ingredients.
Yeah.
And then one day, the Carabinieri came knocking. All right. And they said, hey, you guys have been stealing these tomatoes.
What you doing?
And this is buffalo mozzarella. This is not good. This is not right. We're shutting you down. And all the customers came to the Carabinieri and they said, you can't shut these guys down. Their pizza is great. And it's such a great deal. You know, and to me, that's kind of what's happening here. It's like, all right, these companies are making this cool technology and it's built on the back of somebody else's work. That's not right.
Yeah.
No matter how cool the technology is,
no matter how good the pizza is, you shouldn't do it.
Exactly. But pizza is the model, Federico. Pizza is the model.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's the episode. Thank you for the analogy, John.
I think we should still do the pizza restaurant, but I don't think we should become thieves.
And yeah, I agree. We shouldn't shoplift. Also, like, that wouldn't go so well in Rome because I bet other people would get to you before the Carabinieri. So yeah,
I'm sure they would.
We shouldn't do it.
All right, Federico. Good conversation today. We will have more throughout the summer, all about the various OSs, particularly once the public betas are out, because right now, not that many people are trying these, and they're still fairly rough, and it takes time for things to settle down. And once those public betas are out, we'll be sharing more previews of what is happening. I want to thank our sponsor for this episode. That was Notion. You can find the two of us over at MacStories.net. You can also find us on all sorts of other Mac Stories podcasts, like our new one, NPC, Next Portable Console, which is all about the games we take with us that we co-host with Brendan Bigley. You should check it out. It's a fun show, and I think a lot of people are enjoying it. You can find us also on Mastodon. Just go to vitici.macstories.net or johnvorhees.macstories.net to follow us there. And we're on Threads and Instagram. Federico is at Vitici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.